I called the funeral home. I didn't even know what to say. Like it's my word was like, I don't even know what to say outside. My dad died and I need help. That's how crazy all of this was happening. One of the other things that was, for whatever reason, in my head after the funeral and everything for my dad, I was just like distraught, and I was thinking like, man, I wish I could say I never have to do this again.
Yeah.
But I knew one day my mom was going to pass.
Right.
Just didn't think it would happen that fast.
Welcome to Crucial Conversations, the podcast where real people share real stories of struggle, resilience, and healing. I'm your host, Curtis Green Richards, a transformational life coach. But this show isn't about giving advice. It's about giving a voice. And the voice on today's show is Turq Daniels. We'll hear how Turq went from losing both of his parents within 69 short days to channeling his grief into the creation of a therapeutic photography business that creates art from life's rawest moments. If you grew up in the 90s like I did, then you remember that hanging out at the mall was a normal activity that you would do with your friends. It could be to watch the premiere of a new movie on a Friday night, or it could be a way to kill time on a weekend or any given summer day. You'd call up your friends, meet up, and then you'd walk around the mall for hours upon hours. In those days, all the best stores were located at malls. I'm talking Journeys, Finish Line, Radio Shack, Sam Goody, Sports Authority, Borders, you name it. And if you needed a break from all the window shopping, you just kill some time by kicking in the food court for a bit and do some people watching. One of my personal favorite stores to window shop at was Sharper Image. Oh man, being the techie that I am, a Sharper Image had all the newest and most unique consumer electronics out. It was like stepping into the future and seeing the possibilities of where society might end up. They had massage chairs, remote-controlled everything, and gadgets galore. Man, they even had a mail catalog that you could order from, and products could be shipped directly to your house. It was Amazon before Amazon, and it was my paradise. So you can imagine my disappointment when they closed down back in 2008. Their stock reached an all-time low of 29 cents, and they had accumulated over $200 million of debt. When they closed their doors, a significant portion of my childhood did as well. However, in 2016, 8 years later, they made a comeback. An investment group purchased all the manufacturing, distribution, and licensing rights. They had new logos, styling, and products. They clarified their focus, and true to form, they now had a sharper image. They were back, baby. This trajectory somewhat reflects the story of my next guest, Turq Daniels. Born in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in Opelousas, Louisiana, Turq has built a tremendous career in hospitality and retail operations over the past 2 decades. He's a family man with 2 sons, many loved ones, and a core group of friends. Turq, as you'll hear, is a man of many skills and talents. But last year, Turq experienced the most tragic of losses in his personal life. In 2023, Turq endured the death of both of his parents within a short span of just 69 days. In this episode, we unpack the grief, the loss, and the journey to healing, which has inspired a new set of interests and given him a clearer lens on life. His resilience and renewed perspective is nothing short of motivating. This is A Sharper Image with Turq Daniels. Welcome to the conversation.
Well, Turq, welcome to Crucial Conversations, man. So excited to have you today. Just want to introduce, the guests, you to the guests. Mm-hmm. Turq Daniels, man, fellow Noop. Yo. Shout out to the good Noops.
Yeah.
But we got introduced to some mutual friends, mm-hmm. and just love what you're doing as a person. Love your story. There's so much to unpack today, and so thank you so much for joining Crucial Conversations.
No,
man.
thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And as you said, my name is Turq Daniels. I'm originally from Opelousas, Louisiana. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. When my parents divorced, I went to Opelousas, obviously, and was raised there in Opelousas, Louisiana. However, I spent a lot of my summertime and off-school times with my father in New York City. I have 2 lovely boys, Carson and Parker, 13 and 10. Both are doing phenomenal. They're rock stars in school. Grades are awesome. Sports, band, very active family with my boys.
Okay, man. So this is exactly where I want to start, man, to learn about who is Turq personally, right? So it
Yeah.
sounds like, all right, born in New York. What you said, Brooklyn?
Yeah, I was born in Brooklyn, Flatbush,
Okay.
Brooklyn.
Okay, that's I'm from Flatbush. That's what's up. Okay, cool.
Albany and Avenue D.
Okay, Schenectady.
Okay,
Yeah, man.
I know that.
Clarendon, that whole area, man. So, okay, cool.
I know Clarendon Road really well.
Yeah. You go back much?
Not to Brooklyn. So my parents retired in New York, and then eventually ended up moving to Maryland.
Okay.
And I've been here in Atlanta for 5 years, since 2019. But prior to that, I was in Maryland, the D.C. area too. So my dad lived about 2 hours away, so I was able to kind of go back and forth and see him. He was on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and I was on what he would consider the other side of Maryland. But the last time I was in New York was 2 years ago. I had to do some training there. I'm a certified sushi chef. So I had to go there and learn how to roll sushi and get certified.
Okay.
I got some half brothers and sisters that are there. I got to see one of my brothers there in New York, and my nephew the last time I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so born in Brooklyn, then you moved to Louisiana. Yes. How old were you when you moved to Louisiana?
I probably was, 2, 3. I was a baby.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the majority of your upbringing was all in Louisiana.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Tell me about growing up in Louisiana. What was that like?
Well, growing up in Louisiana was super cool. And I want to be specific, where I grew up in Southwest Louisiana.
Southwest,
so
okay.
The way I like to classify Louisiana is into like 3 sections. So you got the New Orleans, Baton Rouge area, then you got the Southwest Louisiana, and then you got the Northern Louisiana, where I went to college. And the where I'm from is where the Cajuns and the Creoles are from. The larger population of the Cajuns and Creoles are there, where people speak French. There's a lot of swamps, the alligators, and all sorts of things. I mean, the food is different. It's a lot of, from your Caribbean background, probably some of the same, but a lot of tomato-based foods, spicy foods, gumbos. I played basketball in high school. What else? I also have a younger brother that's in Opelousas too. His name is Eric. So he and I grew up somewhat pretty close. He's about 4.5 years younger than me, but we're pretty close now. He's still there. So when I do go home, I get an opportunity to see him. And I have 3 nephews and a niece with him as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah,
okay. And they're okay. So they're all back there. So then you went to college in Northern Louisiana.
Yeah, I went to Grambling State University in Northern Louisiana, about 3 hours away from where I'm originally from in Louisiana. Okay. The dialect, the food, everything is totally different. It was almost like I went to school out of state.
Really?
Yeah, it's that far.
That different?
That different. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the accents, all of the Louisiana accents and stuff like that, all that South, Northern, none of that is happening there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you, what'd you major in college?
Computer information systems.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a small stint with Yahoo. Okay. And when I lived in Houston, so I lived in Houston before. Working behind a computer monitor wasn't for me. I'm more of a person that likes to be out with the customers or with whoever I'm serving is where I want to be. I don't want to be locked up into an office. So, my aunt lived in Dallas, Texas. I did not like living in Houston. And then she worked for a company called Crawthall, and they did support services for hospitals. She got me a job. And once I got on with that company, I was like, I'm going to do this type of work for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it for you that just kind of clicked?
I liked, so another thing to back that story. So before Yahoo, I was at Foot Locker.
Okay.
I worked
So you graduated from Grambling State. And then what's your first job out of college?
Foot Locker.
Foot Locker. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm at Foot Locker in Lafayette, Louisiana.
Okay.
I worked my way up through their management training program, and then I'm promoted to go to Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So again, I wanted to get out of the retail life. The work-life balance is really not there if you work in a traditional retail life. And then that's when I went to Yahoo for a minute. Okay. And then after Yahoo, I moved to Dallas, like I said, with my aunt. She got me on, and what did it for me was just like work-life balance, the professionalism. I knew that I can grow from this. I felt the energy that, I'm going to be able to like truly grow my career, similar to how I saw my aunt grow her career. So that did it for me. I was still young, but I still knew what I wanted. And I knew Foot Locker wasn't where I wanted to be. Even though I knew, ironically, my RVP was a noob, my district manager was a noob, my store manager was a noob. All noobs worked in the store. And then when I got to Houston, the RVP still was a noob, but everybody else was just non-Greek.
Non-Greek. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So shout out to your aunt. Right?
Thank you.
That was great, right? Like putting you on.
That aunt too is my favorite aunt. She's my godmother. I refer to her as Nanny. She's done. I wouldn't be here right here in this chair with you.
Okay.
If not for the motivations that my aunt has given me to my career. She went to Grambling too.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
really special aunt.
Yeah. So she's very, very, very special and near dear to my heart.
Is this on your mom's side or your dad's side?
My mom's side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mom's sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then at some point you moved from Houston, I guess, at that point, Dallas, and then you head out to Maryland. Is that your next stop? Or you had
I got a lot of stops. All right. It's almost like I was in the military. So I left Houston. I go to Dallas, and I'm working for the same company my aunt works for at Crawthall. And then I eventually leave that company to go work for a competitor company called Airmark.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
So I'm working for Airmark. I'm a supervisor. I approached my district manager and was like, hey, I'm looking for growth opportunity. And I'm like, I'll move anywhere. At this point, I don't have kids, So I ended up moving to St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
I had never been to St. Louis, Missouri in my life. I didn't know one person. At the time, I was newly married at that time. So I got to St. Louis and I was working in healthcare at St. Louis University Hospital. That's where Carson was born. Carson was born in 2011 in St. Louis. Okay. Then after St. Louis, we were supposed to move back to Dallas, but I ended up moving back to Louisiana, to Lafayette, Louisiana. Okay. And that's where Parker, my youngest son, was born.
Okay. So Carson and Parker.
Yeah.
Okay. So
my mother was there. I had very small children, so that family support during that time was super important. That I have the people that we can lean on, the community, as they say. My friends, my frat brothers from college friends, and all that was down there as well. Okay. So I was there for about 4 years. I went in there as a director of environmental services, and when I left, I was promoted as the area general manager for Airmark. So where I managed 6 hospitals with multiple departments inside of those hospitals, all non-clinical, of course. From there, I ended up moving to Maryland and getting a job at American University in Washington, D.C. So I was there for, again, about 4 years. And there was some stuff brewing up that Georgia Tech was going to be a potential client of ours. Okay. So somebody said, Turq, you interested in moving to Atlanta? I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind moving to Atlanta. And a year later, we ended up getting a contract. And then in 2019 is when I moved here to Atlanta to assume a role at Georgia Tech with Airmark. So during the pandemic, Georgia Tech decided that they wanted to go a different route. And they were going to not partner with Airmark anymore, but they asked me would I stay.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Valuable employee.
Yeah. So I got the opportunity to stay, which I already knew when I got here to Atlanta. I was never gonna move again, at least until my youngest son got out of school. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So a couple things to unpack. The first is really important. St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
So my wife's family from St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
And the first thing we do when we touch down in St. Louis is we grab some emos.
Okay, yeah.
Do you like emos, pizza? Are you a fan of emos?
I am a fan of emos, but I'm more of a fan of the Chicago style pizzas.
Deep dish.
Yeah. So when I was there, they used to have a place called The Pie. And I forget that it might have been Del Mar, one of those. I forgot the name, one of those neighborhoods. But The Pie, Barack Obama was, I think he was campaigning while I was in Texas, and he ate there and said, this is one of my favorite pizza places. Okay. So, of course, I was like, let's check it out. Then, it naturally became one of my favorite pizza places. Okay. Also, ironically, when I lived in Maryland, they had just put one in D.C., too. Gotcha. So I was able to continue to eat there. But I know emos, I know gooey butter cakes.
Oh yeah, man, gooey butter. Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah, for sure, man. Like St. Louis originals, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. So then, so your kids, Carson and Parker, they're traveling with you when you go to Maryland and when you come down here as well too, right?
Yeah, so I moved here as a family. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. My wife and I divorced.
Okay.
But still got a super healthy co-parenting relationship. You know,
awesome.
everybody's happy. You know, kids are happy. She's happy, and that's super important to me.
Beautiful.
But yeah, every place that I moved permanently, at that time the family moved with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it about Atlanta that when you got here, you're like, this is my spot?
Well, you know, it's geographically located pretty good. It was easy for me to get to Louisiana, easy for me to get back up to Maryland, where my parents were. It also, you know, it was the South, where I was accustomed to being. Cost of living was a lot better than living in the Mid-Atlantic or East Coast. So those were some of the bigger reasons of when I got here, of how excited I was. Again, I got here in May of 2019, and then the world shuts off. And and I didn't get a chance. I'm just starting to see Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for like 2 to 3 years.
I only knew, if it wasn't on 75, and I knew 75 to Georgia Tech, and I knew the airport. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And typically, for me, when I move to a new city, within 6 months, you know, I know all the what's happening, all the cool spots, but again, the world was shut down.
Pandemic shut that down for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about like your parents. Tell me about like your dad. Like tell me about that relationship, how that was with him growing up, and just like what he means to you in your life.
Yeah, my dad was man, I tell you a story that my dad that has always connected with me. So naturally, like most kids, I'm sure you wanted to go to the NBA or the NFL yourself when you were a young kid.
Yep,
and that's all I used to talk about, going to the NBA. And, you know, this was a time when we didn't have cell phones. Long distance phone calls was like, you know, people didn't talk on the phone that long because of the long distance phone call. But my dad bought a camcorder and recorded himself telling me the story of how education was so important.
Wow.
You know, and why, you know, the NBA is there, but the focus needs to be on your grades. So my dad and I also, we would talk 3, 4, 5 times a day about nothing and everything, if that makes sense. Yeah. We both watch way more news than we probably should consume, but it was our thing. And we talked a lot of politics, a lot of current affairs, you know, my job. You know, my dad, he was a superintendent for the New York City Transit Authority, so he managed big teams too. So like to hear his thoughts and ideas around how he managed when he was managing versus how I managed when I managed, you know, like, because all of it's transferable when you are in management, if you will. So, you can, or if you're managing people. So he and I, you know, bonded a lot on those types of channels. Again, current affairs is where we talked a lot. When I moved up to Maryland, you know, we would barbecue a lot. You know, my dad was like the rock star fun. Actually, like a grandpa that played with my children, like not the grandpa that just sits there, but like literally played with my kids or create games and stuff like that. A lot of good, fond memories of spending time with my dad.
Yeah, I saw some beautiful pictures of your father and I guess one of your sons on social media, you know, and it just seemed like just a really special relationship. Yeah. That's amazing. And you guys used to just connect on anything from politics to, and I think that's pretty rare, right? So like my father and I have a great relationship, but there's certain things I wasn't able to connect with him on, but I had to get other mentors to back up with that. But it sounds like with your dad, professionally, y'all all listen to the news together. It sounds like hobbies as well. Like y'all just connected, barbecue and all of it, just like connected on multiple levels.
And you know, that's what has been making it so hard for his absence because, you know, you can go to all the therapy in the world. You know, I think all that works and all that's great. But my dad was always the one that put the finishing touches on everything that I did. So if I went to therapy, you know, if I was able to kind of talk to him and hear some validation, if you will, it always just set the tone of how my life was going to be. And right now, I don't have that. That void is missing for me.
Tell me about your mom.
My mom was very fun. Yeah, and not to say my dad wasn't funny. My dad
two
was
fun
fun.
parents.
Yeah, but my mom was fun. Life of the party. You know, the matriarch of the family. You know, the center. When people came home, everybody came home. Cooked very, very well. Gumbos, you know, traditional Christmas and Thanksgiving meals.
Yeah.
Cornbread dressing is probably one of the biggest things that I'm going to miss that she used to make. You know, my mom, one of the things that she's instilled in me is telling the truth. The truth will set you free. Was always has been her word. Just be a man of your word. Be honest. Be open. And that's something that I've taken away from her that will remain with me for the rest of my life. My mom wasn't a big current affairs person, so the relationship I had with my dad, like if I called my mom about something that was happening in politics, I mean, she wouldn't tell me she don't care, but
Right. You kind of picked it up.
yeah, right.
She's like,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but again, a different relationship. Same loving grandparent to my children. You know, took care of them. You know, especially when we was living in Louisiana, she was able to help babysit and sick kid got to go to work and those sorts of things. So she was definitely a pillar in my corner that was able to help me, thrive with my family.
And what I'm hearing too, it sounds like most of us, you got a lot of your values from your mom, right?
Right.
Like your integrity and doing the right thing and things like that, like being a man of your word.
Right.
So many of our mothers provide a sense of like what values look like, what principles look like, how to be a good person. It sounds like that's what you got from your mom.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So last year was a really tough year for you.
Yeah.
Right. So September 1st and November 9th,
Right.
you lose both of your parents respectively within the span of 69 days. Bro, how was that?
That one, it was tough because in July of last year, my stepmother called me. My dad had taken a fall and hit his head. And, he was an older gentleman, but thinking like he was going to go to the hospital and, they put ice on his head or whatever the case may be, do MRIs. And they did all that. And then they found out that he had brain cancer. Yeah. So my dad was a strong man. Like he beat cancer 4 times before.
4 times.
Yeah. So in his early 50s, he had colon cancer. Then he had prostate cancer. Then he had leukemia. And then the prostate cancer was, I don't know how to classify it. There were signs that it was kind of coming back, if you will. But again, they were able to treat all of that through not chemo, but just what's the word I'm looking for? Where you
like radiation.
Radiation,
okay.
yeah. And then so he falls, and then we find out he has brain cancer. And it metastasized from his lungs to his brain. Now, my dad used to be a smoker, but he hadn't smoked in 40 years. Yeah. And when he passed away, when he was sick, just like seeing him there, man, it was just like, like your parents are just like so strong, And, going back and forth to the hospital, I was able to go and spend some time with him before he passed and help him with his appointments. But when that was all going on, I did everything. I wrote the obituary. I helped set up the funeral. There's no manual for that, man. Like I called the funeral home. I didn't even know what to say. It's my word was like, I don't even know what to say outside. My dad died and I need help. That's how crazy all of this was happening. One of the other things that was, for whatever reason, in my head after the funeral and everything for my dad, I was just like distraught, and I was thinking like, man, I wish I could say I never have to do this again.
Yeah.
But I knew one day my mom was going to pass.
Right.
Just didn't think it would happen that fast.
So how old was your dad when he passed?
My dad was 78.
78. Okay. Okay. So July, you find out he's got brain cancer. And then within 2 months, he's gone.
He's gone.
Was it a whirlwind for you?
It was a whirlwind, of how fast it happened and how fast he started to deteriorate. My dad was also, like how we are as men, like we kind of keep our our diagnoses, or we kind of know what's going on to ourselves. But my dad was one of those that didn't want a burden. I had to go there and stop him from driving, and help my stepmother to tell him he can't drive back and forth anymore because it was starting to affect his mobility. But yeah, it was man, it was just still something, like the election just happened. Again, my dad and I would have been on the phone all night, we'd have been up all night on that, and everything, So it's the things like that every day, man, that I just miss.
Yeah.
To be able to pick up the phone or shoot a text or what have you, and then going back to my mom. The parts of my mom I miss, like I said, my dad and I talked a lot, but my mom and I talked like after this. I'd be like, hey, I did this podcast, Mom. And we might talk 5 minutes about that. And let's say I went to a good restaurant. I'd be like, hey, Mom, I went to this restaurant. So it was always like, oh, let me call my mom right now and see what's going on. Or tell her
what's going on.
Yeah. My dad on the other end, could never do anything quick because we would be on the phone for hours. So yeah. So that's it really rocked my world.
So I want to get to your mom, but help me understand. So what are some of the conversations that you and your pops are having during this time where I guess he knows that it's terminal at some point.
Yeah.
You know that it's terminal. You guys have a history of having great conversations, great relationship, a lot of transparency, and advice and mentoring. Sounds like it's part of your relationship.
Yeah.
What are some of those conversations that you were having with your dad during that time?
When he's
he's in the hospital and he's,
my dad he's also funny, man. So my dad one day he was like, Turq, when I get well, I'm gonna buy a Mercedes, and I'm like, Dad, you're retired, and we need to get you well, he's talking that, we would go to the doctor together. I would take him to his appointments, but we would still have that bonding time to be able to just kind of talk. It wasn't the same how it used to be, but he was a lottery guy, played the lottery every day. So we went with him to play his numbers. I think my dad shied away from the reality that he might not be here anymore.
Really?
So we never really truly talked about it. Even while he was sick, we just thought that he would get better and, life will go on. Because we'd seen this story before. He's beat cancer so many times.
It's just another speed bump.
Yeah,
he'll be back at it.
He'll do it again, But unfortunately, it was a turn for the worse. We had to make a decision to put him on comfort care versus them continuing to treat him. The biggest blessing for me right now is that, they had told us your dad can die today or it can take 8 or 9 months, and I was glad I didn't have to see my dad suffer at all. I miss him, don't get me wrong, but the suffering part he never suffered.
Nobody wants to see their parents suffer,
right?
Or any loved one for that matter. So you said we had to make the decision. I'm assuming your brother was a part of it, or
my brothers and my stepmom, and obviously my stepmom, it was his wife. So, but I give her a lot of grace, and as she allowed us as a family, to make the decision on what we were going to do. Wow.
So now let's move over to your mother. So then your father passes. You're grieving that. Yeah. You're processing that, figuring out what your new norms are going to be.
Right.
And then tell me how things happen with your mom.
So I'll never forget, I was doing a one-on-one with my admin. I was at work at having coffee. And then my cousin called, and she said, she told me, she called my mom Aunt Bob, and she's like, Turq, Aunt Bob died. So my favorite aunt was the one who found my mom dead in her house, in my mom's house.
Okay, so there was no lead up.
No, my mom wasn't sick or any, not like the situation of my dad.
Yeah.
Now my mom did have some health issues. She was older too. She dealt a lot with was it COPD or emphysema. She had some breathing complications and what have you. But how her situation when she passed versus my dad was just complete shock.
So. Wow. Okay. So, what did she ultimately pass away from?
When the autopsy showed that she passed away from a heart attack, and she didn't have any heart related issues. All her issues were she had a hip replacement and just her breathing. Mm-hmm.
So 69 days, you lose both parents. How are you feeling after your mom passes now at this point?
I'm feeling like I just wish it stayed cloudy and rainy all day, and I don't want to come outside. I just want to just be locked in, and not even come out. But ironically, the Saints was playing the Atlanta Falcons that weekend, and most of my friends, my core friends, are coming to Atlanta, and was like, "Turq, we're gonna get you out," and I'm like, "No, I'm not going." Yeah, but I got out. I went to the game. I had fun. Man, my one of my other best friends, Spencer, somehow he had a connection for us to go down and meet the players and go where they have their final dinner before they leave. So I got the opportunity to meet Jameis Winston at that point. And man, I got newfound respect for that brother because, we started talking. I was telling him a little bit about my story, how I didn't want to be here. Because he had brought up someone that told him, like, keep your head up. He wasn't a starter quarterback. He was like, my faith in God. He started talking about God. And I was like, man, this is so powerful to me because I'm glad I'm here because I probably was supposed to be here to meet you. Wow. So I started telling him a portion of my story, and he prayed with me, man.
Really?
Yeah, like right there. We bowed and everything. I mean, he's
after the game.
Yeah, after the game. He prayed with me. So again, that was all signs for me that I guess I was supposed to be there. And yeah, that's how that ended.
Man, that is really, I can't imagine how tough that is. Just like experiencing that in both parents, such a short amount of time, and then like you're still a dad,
right? Still
working,
right?
And the holidays are around the corner,
right?
So what were the holidays? I mean, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like what was that like? And then tell me about your kids. Like, how did they respond to it?
So my kids, I've always tried to keep it normal as possible for them. At last year was the last year. I'm calling it our last Santa Claus Christmas. I don't think my kids believe in Santa Claus now.
And their ages now are what?
13 and 10.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, Christmas, the holidays was real kind of somber, if you will. But I got through it. Again, that December. Friends were there to support me and stayed over with me to help me got me out of the house again. Just got me moving. Therapy helped, but I'm not gonna lie. Like last holiday season was rough. Yeah.
When you, what were some of the things that I guess that you missed the most? Kind of like a year out, right? Like the anniversary just passed like last week, actually, right?
Yeah.
For your mom,
right? So
as you start reflecting, like, what are some of the things that you missed the most? You talk about some of the food. Yeah. Sounds like some memories. Like what are those day-to-day things that kind of come up for you?
I think the biggest pieces that I miss for both of my parents is I got promoted on my job. I wasn't able to share that with them. I coach my youngest son. I'm his basketball coach. I'm not able to share that with them. Or when they get their good grades. And like when the report cards came out, I would always text both my parents and my kids report cards. Yeah. So I missed giving them the updates kind of sort of on my life and how things were progressing in my life and how I was raising my kids. Understanding or just hearing them. What are you doing? Like my dad and my stepmother started this thing on Saturdays where they would watch movies. So I knew I wouldn't call them on Saturdays. And then Sundays would be our day that we would probably catch up on what we didn't catch up over on the weekend. So a lot of routine, I guess, is what the big part is what I miss more so because it was very regimented. I knew at this time and that time I was going to call my mom or my dad. And that void is still missing.
And so you seem like a person who very focused, very driven. I would imagine that during this time, something had to slip. Something had to kind of take a back seat, whether it was work, what do you feel like you had to pause on as you healed or before healing, just grieved? Yeah. Do you feel like you've been able to grieve your parents?
Yeah, I still think I am grieving. I learned a lot about myself that, grieving is not just crying,
Right.
in a corner. You could still smile and grieve. So yeah, I'm actively still grieving my parents. I'm sorry, what was the question
So like, what do you feel like? What did you have to either slow down on, or did you like with work or with like being active with the kids and coaching? Like, what did you feel like? Okay, I can't do this right now. I'm not able to do this. Like, what did you put down?
In hindsight, I wish I could go back and put something down correctly. Because I think all parts of my life I started to not show up how I used to show up
Really?
with just friends and family, or even work. Work was really really a big one. I went to my manager and I was like, I was just frank with him. Like, I haven't been my best self during this time. I'm struggling. But lo and behold, between mentorship and going to therapy, it helped me to get re-engaged. For whatever reason, like I've been able to always keep my focus on my children and not have them lose any sight or anything different than what their normal lives were going. So I think, you got work where you have to go. I got my children where I have to manage. I knew that, I'm doing enough to just get by, to get myself over through a transition with my parents. But yeah, work was probably the biggest one, or just lack of just not interested in either talking on the phone, returning a text message, just to myself. And I still see that a lot of times where, I can get to a point where I just want to be by myself.
At what point did you realize that you needed an outlet to process your grief, right? So two things, in our conversations, and just notice even being on social media, right? So one is you've developed a tremendous love and passion and vocation around photography.
Right.
And you spoke a little about with your dad earlier.
Right.
Secondly, you 50 pounds, I think you dropped.
Yeah.
You look great.
It was about 45 pounds over the course of, I've been able to keep it off for over 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't stress related because you started that journey 3 years ago.
That journey started 2020, August of 2020. I was a diabetic too during the pandemic. And I was diabetic, but during the pandemic, the people who had comorbidities were at risk.
Yes.
For
you were like, nope, not on my watch.
Yeah. So August goes back. It's time to go back to school. I can't fit it in my suits, my clothes, or anything like that. My weight's up. My A1C's up. I'm just a mess. So, I joined Weight Watchers and I started walking. Like, so when I was on campus, I got golf carts and scooters and all sorts of stuff, but I gave all that up and I just started walking and walking and walking. And that's it. And just walking.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the weight started. I lost 20 pounds and I was like, oh, maybe I can lose more.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to get down under 200 pounds.
Okay.
And which I did. And I was super excited about that. And then, went back to the doctor. Diabetes was cleared.
Wow.
Yeah, I slept better. I'm not snoring at night. I'm not, I feel good. I look good. My energy is I'm able to play more with my kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the weight loss happened well ahead of that. The photography, the interesting thing about the photography is when I was a kid, I told you my dad gave me a camera, and we used to take pictures, all over Manhattan and all different places, just picture. So, as the development of the cell phones and the iPhone came, I started doing more pictures. And my friends would still make fun of me, like, oh, Turq does take pictures. So then when we was at my line brother's wedding, people were making fun of me there. It was like, we're going to call Turq the historian because he going to have all the pictures. But it was at that point at the wedding, I realized, like, pictures make me happy. I enjoy taking pictures.
Do you enjoy looking at the pictures after the fact, or you enjoy actually taking them, or both? Like what is it about pictures that you enjoy?
I feel like pictures tell a story. I feel like the things that I've learned in terms of like editing pictures, I was able to create me an Etsy store and sell pictures on Etsy.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I've taken my hobby and my coping mechanism and really turned it into a business that I named Turquoise Eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Turquoise Eyes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
So like there are times like when I do get down or sad, you know, there's always something there that just catches my eyes where I can be like, let me take that picture. And not only that, a lot of people just be like, Turq, you got an eye. But at first I was like, anybody can do this. But the more and more I started taking pictures, the more and more feedback I got like that, it's now has become a thing for me.
So you got the professional cameras and the whole nine at this point?
I got the professional cameras, but I do a lot of what I call is just iPhone photography.
Okay.
Like, so my Instagram, the turquoise eyes, it'll say iPhone photography.
Shot by iPhone.
It's shot by iPhone.
I got you.
But I do have like all the professional cameras. I don't know, you know, I'm thinking about taking a class and and kind of understanding more of the photography. I don't want to be a photographer per se to like take pictures of families and people. I like landscape.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Like beautiful architecture, just life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So besides the obvious connection of your dad to photography, right? How do you feel like photography helps you process like your emotions and maybe even memories of like your events and your appearance and things like that?
I think the photography helps me cope because, again, if I'm in nature, I'm outside, you know, there's a squirrel or something like that, my mind can drift and I can enjoy the moment of what's in front of me right now versus sometimes it's hard to get to enjoy those moments that are in front of you. But I'm a hiker too. I don't know if I told you that. So I like to go and hike.
Cook, you chef.
Yeah. Yeah.
Renaissance man.
Yeah. So when I'm out there in the elements of hiking and being out there enjoying nature, it allows me to take, you know, beautiful pictures and just kind of enjoy what's in front of me.
How have you been able to protect your mental health through this entire process or you know, rebuild it or like, through this journey?
And I'm still protecting it. But how I'm able to do it more so is there are a lot of times I just can't. I just got to call at work. Like, I can't come to work today, or I'm not doing anything this week, and I just need to just be by myself or just relax by myself. My kids have been my biggest motivation, honestly. They when I'm sad and I text them or call them, you know, it will change my whole entire mood. So I do like that I'm able to use my kids as a sense of motivation and coping. But my kids are a big one, and just like not going to anything. Like, just my time has been important, and just saying I'm sorry, I can't do it.
That's really tough to do, right? Because you know, it's I think it's just human nature to just agree to things, loyalty, commitment, whatever it is, right? Just be like, okay, I'm gonna show up. You know, you seem like a man of your word, right? That's what you were taught growing up as well too, right? So that probably had to be an adjustment of like, you know what? I'm just going to show some vulnerability, show a little bit of weakness. I just can't do this.
Yeah.
Like I just don't have the capacity to do it. And I mean, why do you think men struggle with that?
I think how we were raised, and obviously I wasn't there with you, but I'm more so speaking of our generation. I think we're part of that last generation, in my opinion, and I'm going based off of how I'm raising my kids and how I see others raise their kids. Of you couldn't, you know, you fall on the ground, you got to get up. You know, you can't cry, you know, and those sorts of things. And I think men are you know, taught that versus like, hey, it's okay to cry and outpour your feelings and let people understand what's going on. There are a lot of, you know, brothers like us that don't go to therapy, you know, because they don't want to either, hey, I don't want nobody in my business or whatever the case may be. But therapy is very important and healthy, because I mean, it's the same as like if you got a headache, you're gonna go to the doctor for your headache. So your life, your mental is what's needed to kind of help guide you or get you over a hump.
I love that, man, and I agree wholeheartedly. I believe in therapy. You know, I've got some great friends who are therapists and counselors. My dad's a counselor, and so I believe in it. But it's always been tough to have that vulnerability and to share with someone. But the first time you do it, first couple times you do it, you just feel so good. Like you're able to get off your chest, and that person is there for you.
Yeah, right.
right? It's like it's not, you don't have to worry about them having a objective or unbiased opinion, right? Like they're there to support you and help you navigate that process. So I wonder, with your two boys, Carson and Parker, has your relationship shifted with them through this process? Like as a result, like how have you shown up differently, better as a father?
Yeah, and I haven't given any thought of how dealing with the grief have made me show up differently as a better father. But I think what's happening right now is my kids are shifting. I have a 13-year-old, a teenager, and I have a 10-year-old. The personalities are far different, far different. I got one that all he wants to do is play sports, and then I got one that knows everything about space. And
wow, okay,
yeah, like anything about space, he can name it, quote it, or whatever the case may be. Okay. So, how I show up for my 13-year-old and making sure he gets the things that he needs, having those important talks at a teenager. These kids are getting far more advanced than when me and you were coming about, with more technology and what have you. And again, having the ability to coach my youngest son, that's been super cool to be able to see him grow and develop. And whereas my oldest son, it's been easy to talk to him about just life, because he's not a baby anymore, and hear his opinions and kind of get him to flourish about his education or talk about the things that he wants to do. He was in a program called AVID, and he's already been on like 5 or 6 college tours.
Wow.
Those sorts of things is where I'm super cool to hear him talk about. Dad, I want to go to Caltech and or Georgia Tech and those sorts of things. So that's been really, really, really amazing to have that type of relationship with both of them.
How has your aunt been supportive and been a rock for you through this process?
Yeah, my aunt has always been a rock for me through life. The unfortunate part about this one is it's affecting all of us because it's her sister.
That's true.
Yeah. So we are trying to hold each other up, whereas it's not the same typical way of just going to my aunt if I had a normal problem, if you will.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's understandable. Have you seen your network evolve? Like, so I would imagine there's a segment of people that you might have been exposed to now who have lost parents. How has your network shifted, or even just relationships with individuals where it's become a little bit more vulnerable? Like you mentioned, Jameson, right? But like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think, again, life is crazy. And, we're, as they say, you're born to die. So when you're born, you're going to die. And I think, I'm 47 years old. I think my friends are going through the same thing, aging parents, aging family members, or whatever the case may be. If you got your grandparents now at 47 or older, I think that's very fortunate.
Yeah.
But most of us started losing our grandparents when we were like teenagers too, or in our mid-20s or what have you. So I think this part of our lives, as what I'm calling a mid-aged guy or person, that's when more and more of my friends are kind of going through some of the same similar situation. I had a real good friend. She lost her mother in April of last year. Her mom lost her battle with cancer. But she's still struggling with it. It's something she and I talk about a lot, about just, our different relationships with what we had with our parents or how we miss our parents. If there's a sign that, my mom or my dad's around, like sometimes they say a cardinal, a sign that your loved one's nearby.
Okay.
I just moved and at my old apartment, I used to see cardinals all the time, and really? In my mind, I'm like, I don't know. But like my new place, I saw one the other day. Yeah, and I was just like, But again, just having those types of nuggets and being able to bounce those ideas and hear her how she's coping versus how I'm coping, it has really, really helped.
What advice would you give to people who have gone through this recently or going through it now? Look, it's still a process for you, right? And it sounds like it could be a process for some time. I mean, that's how grieving is, we all grieve different things. We have different life experiences, but based upon the experience that you've had, what advice would you have for someone?
Definitely therapy. Definitely don't isolate. Um, you know, keep your faith in God. And make sure that you're grounded there with God. Say your prayers every day, because prayer definitely has helped me on some of those days where I just can't move. It's okay for your feelings to spill out. They need to spill out. Some people don't want them to spill out. That would be a big advice of mine. And I would say just focus on, the core memories that you had with your loved one that was gone. Like all the good times and the good things that you did with your loved one. Those would be my biggest advice.
Okay.
Therapy. I think I told you therapy would definitely be something that someone should seek immediately.
Is that something that you started right out the gate, or did it take a little bit for you to start seeking therapy?
Well, I guess fortunately I was already in therapy, just for me,
Okay. Okay.
So
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
That's amazing. That's great.
yeah. So it wasn't like a hard thing to kind of like pick up the phone and call and what have you. There was some coping mechanisms that I had learned prior. I do a lot of journaling too, not as much as I used to, but I should do a little bit more. But journaling and getting those feelings out by writing really, really, really helps too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you spoke a little about this before, man. What are some of your favorite things to photograph? What makes you smile? What makes you like just light up when you can get it on camera?
The crazy thing is, like, there'll be a patch of time that I'm doing the sky, whether that's the sun, the sunset, the sunrise, storms, or whatever the case may be, and I'm just on the sky. Most recently, I've been on more so like buildings, if you will, like the structure. So Georgia Tech, I took a picture of the Pencil Building downtown, and it was a portion of the Georgia Tech Student Center was in there, and I posted it on my LinkedIn. And then Georgia Tech came to me and was like, hey, do you mind if we repost this?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they reposted my picture. And then, ironically, a gentleman that works in that Pencil Building was like, hey, do you want to see it? Do you want to come up here? And he took me up there. So, my favorite thing to photograph right now is probably like I took a picture of a barn the other day. It was just a regular barn. It was in the backdrop. It had the clouds of fog. It was fog around it. I thought I can get the picture. I got out of my car.
Okay.
I ran down the street, go take the picture, and then go home to edit it. So I won't say I'll have one thing. I wanted to do some fall foliage pictures this year, but I didn't get a chance to do a lot of those fall foliage pictures.
Okay.
But yeah, I enjoy taking whatever.
Okay. Sounds like perspective is everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, final question for you, man. So, Turquoise Eyes, right? That's the brand. I think we can assume what the color is, right? How can people find out about you? What are your socials?
Yeah, you can follow me on Turquoise Eyes on Instagram and on TikTok. You can also follow me on Etsy under Turquoise Eyes. That's what my store is. And then I have a website, turquoiseeyes.com. Is where most of my, like if you want to do business or work with me or something like that, you can go to that website and see all the things that we do. Because we're doing more than just pictures. I want to do food photography, social media management, which I do have a couple of clients that I'm already managing their social media. And then the like I said, the pictures that I could sell like on Etsy or what have you. Yeah.
Man, Turq, thank you so much for sharing your story here on Crucial Conversations, man. My heart goes out to you, and it's to hear your journey. It's beautiful to see how you have taken something so deep and something so saddening, and really found some beauty in how you're moving forward with it. And I really appreciate you kind of giving a nod to therapy and it sounds like your friend group. Your kids and all the things in life that kind of surround you because, we are, I am, because we are, I am. It's a sense of community.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking your time to kind of walk through your story today, man. And yeah, man, let's definitely stay in touch on this, man.
No, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell my story. Again, this is like therapy. Like you're getting it out. So thank you, and I appreciate being a part of your podcast.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
All right, man. Appreciate it, bro.
All right.
Yeah.